Was he on last
Yeah,
night?
yeah,
Cool.
live. Just me and Rick start the show. Been abandoned by the truckload of hosts that we normally have.
We're good enough. We can handle it.
We're gonna have to get through by ourselves. Yeah.
Well, cannabis will be our co-pilot today.
Need some help. Yeah. All right. So, sans the great 420 promos, we can take a look at our awesome sponsors here as I get rolling.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe is sponsored by the Botanical Company, Redemption Cannabis, Real Leaf Solutions, the Detroit Nutrient Company, and GrowGreenMI.com.
Nice 420 promotions. We're also at the kind of at the end of this year and some of the promo type things that we set up. So we have to see if who's interested in going another round. Hopefully everybody, but we will have to see. So kind of want to get out of the way up front here. I don't want to beleaguer it because it doesn't spawn a whole lot of positivity, but there are some good things to draw from this situation. And not everybody knows about the controversy that took place with this dinner that we had the other night to help educate lawmakers. But there is a section of it that's important, and I learned something, and I was responsible for some of the controversy. And as I realized, I was asked to help put together the presentations, and I wasn't extremely inclusive first time around, and there was some pushback from that. I got a call saying, hey, you should take a look at this again and see about bringing some other people in possibly. And during the course of speaking with many, many lawmakers on the issues of the anti-caregiver bills that we're trying to bring to their attention and educate them about and get them to oppose, there were some pretty frank discussions about you need representation of the people who are in my district. And the lawmakers say, I want to talk to Black people from my district on these issues. I like the information that you gave me, but that's who I need to be educated by and persuaded by. And fortunately, as this movement has gotten bigger and bigger, and there's been a lot of interest in it, I think as we all know, and I'll get into this right now, cannabis represents a lot of different things, and there's a lot of interest in it. And we have a wide range of people that can handle these conversations and who meet the demographics that some of the lawmakers would like to see. So when I was kind of confronted on this stuff, I agreed, said, you're right, and started to work to fix it. I called the organizers. They agreed that we should fix it, and we did. And I'm happy about that we did before the event took place. But what I'm going to take with me is whenever, like, being involved with one of these or initiating one, planning, the consciousness level has to be a little higher and understanding of the conditions of society right now and the necessity to be inclusive and diverse with these things whenever we possibly can. And I'm glad that we did. I think that was very helpful, and I'm going to keep that with me and take it with me, and fancied myself somebody who doesn't get into too much prejudice and things like that, but I found myself in that situation, so I apologize for that, and I'm going to move forward. Kind of hope that we all, even with disagreements or misunderstandings and miscommunications, just keep in mind that there are times we can all intersect no matter what. And right now with these anti-caregiver bills, the threat to rights being taken away for caregivers, the attempt by big money interests to control things, it really shouldn't take much to get a lot of us together to work against that. And I still see that a lot. There's certainly been some tension and some issues and things like that, but I think we've maintained regardless throughout. And just similar to kind of what we did for those who were around in the old days, kind of what we did whenever Shooty decided to make a move or do something that was obviously not in our best interest, in spite of many differences and stresses. We were able to get together and work against that. And that's kind of how I feel is going on now. And I just hope we continue to do that and just kind of keep a bigger picture in mind and not fall into worrying about those who are actually on our side and creating negative situations between ourselves that don't necessarily have to be there. I mean, I'm not telling anybody how they should think and feel about anything. So that's where you need. I still have people out there that I don't really want to deal with, just to be quite honest about it. So that's where I am. I wanted to get that out of the way. We are still dealing with this. I mean, recently there was a new bill introduced. It was done again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim, I got to interrupt you because you're moving past a subject matter that I need to touch base on.
Okay, right on. Yep, right on.
So as Jamie mentioned, we did have this dinner. This dinner was wonderful. It was fantastic. Great information was transferred. People renewed relationships. People got new relationships. It was a wonderful event. And it took place essentially without a lot of hitch once everybody was at the dinner. But prior to, as Jamie mentioned, there was concerns. Those concerns were raised. The concerns were addressed. But some people took it upon themselves to try and destroy the dinner, to try and sabotage it by telling people not to show up, not to come, by painting a picture of that dinner as a monochromatic episode that would not be positive for African American people. As it turns out, as Jamie mentioned, it was not monochromatic. It was really diverse. We did a great job. 2 of the 6 speakers were African American. At least a third of the people that I can remember in the room were African American. It was a very diverse thing. My statement is, how do those people fix it? Those people that called folks and told them not to come, not to show, don't attend this dinner because it's going to be all white people, and it wasn't all white people. How do those people then go back to all the people that they lied to, essentially, or said something to that didn't turn out to be true? How do they go back and try and reclaim their credibility after having said something like that? So I'm not saying that to attack any particular individuals. Like Jamie, I'd like to deliver a message with my little vignette here too. And the vignette is, don't attack if you're not ready to suffer the consequences, because there's no need. When I isolate a particular person for, let's just call it, for community awareness, I'm always aware that person can come back on me. Always. The fact is, I don't say things that I can't back up with truth. And I don't try and destroy someone else's event for whatever purpose I think it's going to be. So it's absolutely an essential part of our industry to cull from it people who are not productive, people who are dangerous, and people who try to insinuate themselves into leadership position when they have no right to do so. So we'll continue to do that. And I'm not going to back down on anything under the guise of let's just be nice and play good. That's not going to fly. This is too important of an issue for us to just sit back and not hold people accountable for what they're doing and the damage they're creating. So now I'm done.
Right on. We're still working on this as part of exactly where I was starting to continue to go. And I'm glad that you decided to chime in with your perspective. And if others need to get some of this who are involved and still want to talk about this and need to get some of this off, let us know. You know, we can.
But as far as I'm concerned, it's a closed issue. As Jamie mentioned, we have Monday problems. I don't have time to worry about Saturday problems because we got Monday problems, right? So anybody that wants to dwell on the past and use this as an episode to justify hate, let's not do that. Why? Everybody's in this community. Whether you like what they did on Saturday or not, you're still going to need them on Monday. So don't burn bridges. You can help to rectify things without wrecking things. And we need to move forward. So I don't carry a grudge, but I do learn lessons and I never forget. So there's that.
We'll be better off for all this stuff moving forward. But moving forward is the thing. I agree with that too. I just would, I needed to kind of finish some things up, so I'll keep that window open for anybody who also wants to do that. But most recently, as the saga continues, without listening to one of our primary messages about, let's talk about all of these things that are being brought up. Let's talk about all of these concerns, but let's do it via a fair process. Let's do it with all people who have something meaningful to say, who are stakeholders, and we'll be able to come up with something that we identify as a real need to fix in a way that makes sense for everybody. One of the things that was being talked a lot about was Linder's insistence originally that the bill and the new license with special medical grower license was a social equity approach that was like the best thing that ever could possibly happen for social equity or something like that. I mean, just paraphrasing. And that was widely criticized. And so possibly in response to that, and if you notice, if you check out the response from the big money interests after a little while, you can see that they've been paying attention to what our objections are, the things that we're saying that we take issue with, and feebly, but still in a way they can use to spin it, try to address it, so to speak. And so recently there was a new bill introduced by the same people that have been introducing the other bills, Lilly and Ronnie Peterson, who's the tax bill Democrat, and somebody else, I can't think of the name at the moment, introduced House Bill 5562. I could probably easily look it up. And it taps into all this by having the state create grant programs for the MMFLA and for the MRTMA for women and minorities to help assist in getting businesses and the funding necessary for getting businesses up and running, and assuming whatever other support. It's a pretty basic bill that just makes the state do that, directs the department to put this together. So then the details will then be considered by the department, like a lot of this
in
stuff
the admin rules.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And sounds good on the surface. I did talk to some people who are very skeptical about it, but might sound really good on the surface. But again, this was done without any of our input, and they're going to try to tie bar, what I understand, tie bar to the other ones that are already tie barred. And there's no movement at all on bringing back the original number of plants and not creating these other restrictions and imposing these other mandates and things like that we've taken issue with and haven't heard of a good reason yet why we really need to do that, other than the big money interests believe it'll benefit them. Mm-hmm. So this stuff continues. They don't think that this is over. They don't have the votes right now, but they don't think that's gonna remain that way. This is all preparation for horse trading, and we've said it here before. This might end up in lame duck. It might be a year from now when we're really scared about what could be going on. There might be stuff that sounds good to some of the lawmakers, and they somehow justify the net gain for everybody and say, yeah, but we got this. They're going to do that anyway, and then this was going to happen. And when it gets caught up into all that horse trading scenario that it's referred to sometimes, a lot of different things can happen. There's no public input during that time, just as well as we could possibly do leading up to the elections is as good as. By the way, if
it stretches to lame duck, that means we will have successfully stalled it for over a year, which will be a real gold star on our foreheads as a community. But if it just ends up getting passed in lame duck because we dropped the ball and didn't continue to interact with lawmakers when election time came down in 2022, then that would be a shame, Jamie. That would be a shame.
So we have to continue this, and so many people are doing a lot of things. It doesn't all have to be under one organized umbrella, but a lot of people are doing a lot of different things that are helping out. We need to keep that up, though, and not just feel complacent now because there's 35 or 40 no votes that have been identified. We need 28 of those to stop this. So some of those people aren't as solid as we'd like them to be, given what some of their other options might turn out to be able to be over the course of this next year. It's going to be a difficult task, and kind of not homing this in, pointing this in toward each other as much as possible will be very helpful.
Well, we'll say this too. You noticed during the evolution of these bills, they've changed several times. They were a proposal at one point before they were bills, then they were bills. Then they added in the 5319, 5321 language, which takes away the cannabis use tax in order to sweeten the pot. That didn't work. They tried to, remember, Rep. DeMoose gave some information to Linder, which then prompted them to put out a press release saying that they were going to suggest that all of their members, what was it they were going to suggest their members do, Jamie? I forget. Anyway, MCMA tried to make it an even more attractive package, and that didn't work. So now they've got this bill that they're going to add on there, and that's
the special fund to help out patients in need. They did that. They the substitute itself was an attempt at an appeasement, which went from caregiver being reduced down to one patient to still being able to maintain up to 5 patients, but not increasing the original plant count.
By the way, Rep. Lilly lied. I'm pretty sure it was Lilly. Jamie, you were there for the first hearing and you were there for the second hearing. When they introduced the substitute, which affected 5300 and 5302, I believe, that's the MMA and the MRTMA. When they introduced those two substitutes, didn't Lilly say that caregivers can now grow 24 plants?
They did say that, and the only thing I can think of, because the language says 12.
12.
Is the assumption that if the person was also a patient, that would be automatic, that those could be included.
But he sold that to those lawmakers. He sold that to the people on that committee who voted on that day based on the premise that it gives 24 plant allowance when the language only says 12. Lilly lied. He did. And that'll be another campaign that we start. Because frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that vote in the Regulatory Reform Committee was taken under false pretenses because the explanation of that substitute was fraudulently done. Truth. So I have to go back over the tape and find out exactly what he said. But this occurred to me the other day, and I wanted to share it with all of our people so that you have a chance to take a look at the video for yourself. It's posted. It's out there.
And this is a continuation of the methodology that we've seen. There's not truth here. There's this fabricated hysteria. These are people that know how to work these systems in Lansing, that have a lot of resources. Mm-hmm. That poll, all that stuff. This is all just like part of this, very
Anderson
expensive
Economic Group.
Yeah, very expensive way of creating an hysteria out of thin air, and it works.
For those of you that have been watching on Facebook, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I was recently published in Skunk Magazine, and I quoted Jamie Lowell, and what Jamie Lowell said is very appropriate for us to talk about right now. And it was, even when Schuette came to power and he had all these tools and attributes at his disposal, we still had the truth on our side, and that made a difference.
I said that recently, actually. This reminds me of all of that again. Your article is so timely. I was going to get to that too. I guess.
No, we can wait till later on if we want. We're doing good.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to mention that last night. Kind of a little bit of continuation of this. Robin was on Medical Mondays, as was Zara and Marshall and Connie, and we talked about some of this stuff. And I think that some people now know that the MICIA is definitely not causing a problem for us, and how and why they are in opposition to these bills, even though there is not an obligation to represent caregivers. It's a business organization. And so I hope that kind of was received a little bit and relieved some tension from that. A lot of people that would confuse the MCMA with the MICIA, just all corporate interests, and not make the distinction between who's really causing these problems.
Tell you what, you sit down with Robin for 5 minutes and you'll never believe that about her ever again. Just listen to her talk about caregivers and her personal history and how her organization supports caregivers and how they unanimously voted 2 separate groups of them to oppose these bills. You'll never believe that Robin is our enemy ever again.
The legislative committee evaluated it, and then the board has to then approve everything. And the people in the membership, the 300 plus, trust that process and trust the people that are in leadership, and they're fine with it by and large. And
Jamie and I have worked with Robin since what, 10? Jamie, 11?
I would say maybe 10. It's got to be 10. Yeah.
Mac, back at the inception of Mac when we first hired a lobbyist. So, yeah, I mean, we worked with her for a long time. So, in varying capacities. She's been a part of a bunch of different trade associations, Michigan Association of Compassion Centers, National Patients' Rights Association. She was a political director, or I cannot recall her proper title, and I apologize for that, with the MRTMA.
Yeah, the coalition, like primarily fundraising, I think, is whatever the title was. I think it was primarily fundraising.
So when you look at a history there, you've got a lot of history of giving to the industry. I know there are some people out there that are lobbyists that have just recently discovered that cannabis is lucrative and that they love to take money from people who have a lot to give, and they don't have any fucking history and they don't have any knowledge. The problem is sometimes we have people lobbying for us and they don't have the knowledge base that's necessary to be able to have an intelligent conversation about this subject. Just like the lawmakers don't. Someone in the chat earlier mentioned they had a conversation with a lawmaker recently, and that lawmaker seemed like they were really light on their cannabis knowledge. That was the predicating reason why we did the dinner.
Yeah, and last night we kind of went through a list of the things that we've come to realize have been issues, the missing information and the misinformation from getting feedback from a lot of the meetings with the lawmakers, and that's what a lot of the presentations were based around there. But historical perspective is definitely missing. I mean, for me, it's a little frustrating when people start taking these bills like just seriously on the surface and getting into the details and wondering what we might be able to do to fix this or why this is a problem, or and all that kind of stuff. When the reality is this is just the next attempt at a big money grab. And with historical perspective, you can see that a little bit more than getting caught up into the minutia of it all, which is what the big money interests have been able to do.
No, Robin was never a problem for us. Other people had issue with her. Jane was writing, sorry to hear there was a problem with Robin. I'm sorry that Robin experienced a problem from the industry because she didn't deserve it. So, that's it. Do we think the state will move even quicker now because Republicans are trying to criminalize on a federal level? I do not think that the state's going to move any faster because of whispers of federal action.
No, but we're going to talk about that too a little bit.
I saw that on the agenda.
Yeah. So anyway, I think the show last night was pretty good. It fleshed some stuff out. I didn't really want to get into it that much more, but it prompted me to want to talk about it a little bit more today. And I did, and you did. And so there's a lot of positivity that came out of that. And I think we can move forward now. And knowing that we still have to work on this, and this problem's not going away. In fact, there was just some more stuff that's been laid on us. So we've got to get to the senators more. These more bills come out, and we have to make it clear that no matter how good these things get stacked, it's not, if the basis of it all is taking away these rights, then it's a non-starter thereafter.
We have to work group. As long as we're sitting at the table with other of our peers, sitting across from lawmakers and with industry representatives, we're going to come up with something. And if that whole process yields nothing but, heartbreak and tears, then it was still worth it. We have to be at the table. That's it. I'd love to support 5319 and 5321 because they take away the user tax that's being assessed to Michigan caregivers. I'd love to. But the fact is, we were not at the table when those were drafted. So as much as I appreciate what they're trying to do, it's still a misfire. We still have to do things.
Hey, so we did bring up also, there were a few of us who are on the Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition Policy Subcommittee, which has been kind of the basis of the working with the lawmakers on the state deschedule bill. And that is going to be introduced in the next few days.
Well, I'm glad for that. Descheduling is an important step. It really just removes cannabis right from mention onto the schedule of controlled substances. And if that goes through, it'll trigger so many changes. It'll be a cascade of change when that happens. Maybe not immediately, but that sends a signal to all of the different Michigan departments of government, Health and Human Services, Department of Transportation, the judicial branch of government, all of them. Take that out of the criminality, and there's a de-emphasis on trying to focus it.
So, and you're right. You started bringing up the quote that you used from me when we were looking back at the caregiver system and what it's meant historically and how it's contributed to Michigan's economy. And of course, the position that you and I have been in, and others probably watching the show, been able to hear of and see many people save their houses, be able to get out of debt and to regroup from a bad situation because the caregiver system or the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act was available and came into being. It's still, I said it many times, not that anybody necessarily should remember, but in the old days, Big Daddies had a system in place in which I think it was up to 100 or so patients in need, and they were part of a process to become one of these patients, and unfortunately it had to do with having serious condition and being in need and that type of thing. But they got their medicine monthly for free for as long as that program could go on, and it was a really nice system. And then the caregivers who were doing that then were able to get their operations in place and make sure everybody was taken care of and benefit themselves a little bit.
Yeah. Importantly, though, at that particular time, there was a permission level. I'm sorry, am I hearing a little echo?
I'm not.
Okay, good. So there was a permission level before there was infrastructure. So you had the ability to use cannabis as a medical marijuana patient, but there really wasn't a whole lot of supply available to you. So when we launched gray market centers like Third Coast and like Big Daddy's, that was the intent, was to make it possible for people who had medical marijuana cards to be able to access cannabis in a way that they hadn't before. And caregivers were the lifeblood of it. We used caregiver cannabis in order to help people. Caregivers came in and talked about what they do, how they help people. Caregivers were the ones that learned about the latest concentrates and the newest techniques and brought in technology and information from other places. Caregivers were the ones that introduced Michigan to Rick Simpson oil. I want you to think about that for a minute. Caregivers, the ones who introduced Rick Simpson oil to Michigan. Okay? Because prior to 2008, we didn't have Rick Simpson oil here. Maybe there were a couple people making it. I certainly don't want to suggest there were not ever. But man, it wasn't popularized until really the caregiver system and early publications like the Midwest Cultivator, like Midwest or Michigan Medical Marijuana Magazine. When we started sharing stories of healing that came from other places, our sick people in Michigan said, "I want that," and caregivers went out and learned how to do it. They brought that medicine.
I learned a lot about this from Peanut Butter.
Gersh Avery, what a great guy.
Should get him on here, man. He showed up at the rally.
I hugged him.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I did too. Almost
made me cry. Yeah. He's a great guy. Talk about a person who gave a lot of himself. There are a few people, Jamie, from the gray market days that I thought had products that could carry through, right? would be successful in the adult or in the regulated market, regulated medical or regulated adult use. Captain Kirk stuff just always has a reputation. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Peanut butter stuff too. I mean, come on. As a topical goes, there was nothing better than peanut butter's oil, and it had a lot of different applications.
It was definitely one of the first around that was regularly in a consistent package and consistent whatever, there's formula, special secret formula, and all that kind of stuff. And it was one of the first things that we could point to while discussing cannabis to people, that you use cannabis in a way for sure that you don't get high.
Right.
That was very helpful back then. Now, of course, many people can have a great discussion about that, the variety of products and types and all that kind of stuff that can be done like that. But that was very helpful back then.
Well, before Tommy Chong was shoving cannabis up his butt, Gersh Avery taught us how to do that and taught us the value of suppositories and as a delivery system. And honest and truly, I had never heard anybody discuss using cannabis, that particular avenue, until Gersh discussed it. And he spoke about it in such an honest way. I just totally believed him. And I still do. I don't.
When I met Gersh, he was James up here saying Swampy.
Swampy. Rest in peace, Swampy, man.
Gersh was, essentially Swampy's caregiver at that time. And of course, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Jane would confirm or deny that Swampy was the creator of the Free Leonard strain.
I always thought that it came from northern Michigan and that was somewhere around there. Free Leonard, of course, is a nod for Leonard Peltier. If you'd like to learn more about the Leonard Peltier story, you should certainly check out some of the Jazz Cabbage Cafe archives. We have a wonderful 2-hour segment about a really tragic story involving cannabis and Native American gentleman named Leonard Peltier and the ridiculously wicked way in which he's been kept in jail for decades.
Yeah, and it's like well known, and I believe, like it was said during our show anyway, like practically admitted to that they know that he didn't actually do it, but he represents just like somebody taking the fall for the group, to make sure that the feds can lock somebody up for their guys getting hit.
2 Federal Bureau of Investigation agents were killed, and they always want someone to pay a price for that. And once they've tagged you as the guilty person, it's unlikely that they're ever going to decide that was an error. So presidents have been consulted about this, and they won't release Leonard. Movies have been made about this. Robert Redford made a movie about this. And still, we can't get any movement on it. So that's a real.
Yeah, they're talking to like the UN, some kind of mechanism through the UN to possibly try to do something now. I forgot the details. I should revisit that. See what's going on. But and we had Malcolm McKinnon, who's covered this story, just visited him in prison, and for many years, and knows a lot of the people, and he came on and really helped to connect a lot of the people to come on and discuss this, who were there, who are related, who understand the story very well. And it was, there's a lot of great information out there on this that people can learn about it and how tragic it is. We did a good job of encapsulating it in a couple of hours also.
That Robert Redford movie is called Incident at Ogala, Ogala. You should absolutely look that up on your NetTube or Uflix or whatever it is you youngsters watch things on nowadays. Just fucking with you. That's available in a lot of different formats. It's a sad story. But here at Jazz Cabbage Cafe, we're not afraid to talk about things that aren't always just pretty and beautiful. And I know some radio shows, some podcasts, some television programs like we are don't want to cover the stuff that's uncomfortable to talk about, but we should. We had a wonderful presentation during Entheo Fest by Barking Dog, Daryl Brown, who's a Native American artist, and he brought up some extremely uncomfortable truths about America and about the way that white America has essentially crafted history in a way that favors ourselves. It is time for us to revisit and perhaps reteach our children some things that they recently learned that may not be accurate or that may not be the whole truth. And I support that.
So Swampy did bring us Free Leonard.
Melody.
Was Melody on that show? She definitely was on the.
She definitely was there. She and Rev Steve. Yeah.
She was definitely on the Rainbow Farm show too.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But yeah, which is also another good one. Adam was on Medical Mondays last night. He's still been coming on here, even though he's been in Amsterdam. But he's not here now. I hope everything's going okay with him, and well, I'm sure he'll be back on.
His Facebook posts are pretty bleak. So, yeah. And if Leonard got released, he would be a very powerful man, says CJ Apau, and he's right. You take someone who's essentially been a martyr and then elevate them back to larger than life status. If you look at Michael Thompson, God bless that guy. He did a lot of time in jail, way too much. And when he came out, he's used that notoriety and that opportunity to really elevate that subject into dining table conversation. Prison reform is big with him, not just for cannabis people, but for everybody. And I'm understanding that he's going to have some meetings with some very powerful people here at the state level in Michigan in hopes of securing a different way to look at prisoners and maybe fewer prisoners to look at.
I guess incidentally, the LPP, which is part of the Cannabis Freedom Coalition, which is the group that was very instrumental in the Michael Thompson process to get him out, is looking at making a push for Rudy Gamo. There's a campaign of sorts and letters to the governor. And it seems like there was maybe another destination, not the parole board.
One of the councils, one of the deputy councils for the office of the governor, who specifically handles penal issues. So,
you say handles penal issues?
I did say that, and I wondered if it was going to get additional attention.
I wasn't paying attention. I was drinking some coffee, and
you were paying attention. You caught that. But the fact is, we've raised some hell in the past, and there are certain departments that say, look, when you raise hell with us, it just makes things worse. So we raise hell in different ways because we're smart like that. When I say we, I ain't talking about me. I'm talking about the Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition, the Michigan Cannabis Caucus of the Michigan Democratic Party, Last Prisoner Project Redemption Foundation. There's a lot of smart people that help us to redefine our efforts into areas where they're actually good, not where they're maybe causing more problems. And the parole board said, stop targeting us for emails and letters. So we're focusing on a different branch of government. Jamie, that's accurate, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like there might be a time when they would accept some information, but they just not at large in anticipation of them making it to that process. They'd rather not be inundated with stuff until it's like actually before them, I think was part of that message. But
we heard from lawmakers in the past too, Jamie, that although they may have supported concepts, they wouldn't talk about specifics about bills until bills were actually introduced. We would say they're going to do something bad, and they would say, well, when the bill comes out, then bring it to me and we'll talk about it. They didn't. And that's oftentimes just trying to compartmentalize a very busy schedule. So I try to think of it as that way.
So a couple things about Rudy. The case, his case, the issues that led to his case took place in Detroit and in Oakland County. And they did prosecute it in Oakland County. And Oakland County historically has been one of the worst counties between Sheriff Bouchard and former prosecutor Jessica Cooper. They really, really handed it to people involved in cannabis activity. And there is a new prosecutor now, and she ran with a few others, such as Ellie Savitt from Washtenaw County and Carol Seaman in Ingham County, and Victoria Burton Harris in Wayne County. Victoria didn't win, but she's now an associate prosecutor with Ellie Savitt in Washtenaw, and these are very aware, civil-minded people that want to take a different approach. And
progressive prosecutors and prosecuting offices, right?
yes, and so the prosecution office in this case is actually writing a letter of support to help get through this process. So that wouldn't have been heard of just before the last election.
Well, and again, when I'm sorry, Jamie, please finish.
Karen McDonald. That's also.
Yeah, that's her name. These progressive prosecutors have really helped make a difference. Remember that in 2018, when the adult use marijuana legalization passed, immediately certain prosecutors made big, bold statements. We're no longer going to prosecute these crimes. I mean, it was a trend. It was like keeping up with the Joneses. One prosecutor would say that, and then a county next to him, that prosecutor would jump in. Really made a difference. Some of those counties may have been backsliding a little bit because it seems like we're hearing about more and more prosecutions in places that we didn't think they were going to be doing that in. But that was a response to the voter-directed initiative. But what we're talking about now is a response to just the injustice, of having a prison system that keeps these people there as if they are permanent residents, as opposed to just people, paying a price and then returning back to society. So when I see anybody trying to take on the prison industrial complex, I'm impressed, especially from a prosecution level, because they get so much pressure, not only from the citizenry, but also from people who support the prison industrial complex, like elected officials and law enforcement agents and old prosecutors. So kudos to anybody that has the guts to stand up and say, no more, not on my watch. What up, Jaime?
Yeah.
Scott Neville was sending out some great videos the other day on his Facebook account. Yeah.
Nice.
So
go to Third Coast Customs in Escoda.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pictures on Facebook of a lot of work those guys have done.
I got to say, we have a lot of partners, a lot of people that are really helping to support us in our success, not just in podcasting, but as patients and caregivers and cannabis users and all the different things that we've done over the years. And
did a couple of nice events right in there in the Third Coast backyard.
Scott and Steven, great guys up there. Yeah. Yep. And again, we're seeing along the Lake Huron coastline, for those of you who are not familiar, we're along here. We're seeing just a ton of activity in support of cannabis businesses, cannabis freedoms. And in return, cannabis industry players have given back to the community. I remember Darren McCarty, Jamie, had a really good event in Tawas, supported by the Botanical Company. And it helped out a youth hockey league, if I remember correctly, right?
It did, yeah. Part of the type of community outreach Botanical Company engages in, just trying to normalize cannabis in the community.
Yeah.
And we did set up one of Darren's slapstick comedy tours at the hotel in the banquet room.
It was great.
It was really popular. Yeah,
it's great. Those guys are so funny. If you get a chance to see the slapstick, Jamie and I've seen it a couple times. They were also here at the Dort Federal Credit Union Event Center in Flint, which used to be called the IMA, which used to be called Pirani Arena. I'm an old schooler. But every time they do those events, I laugh so much. Darren's just a great guy to begin with. When you listen to him talk about the history of the Red Wings, it's just so amazing.
So there was a new bill introduced on the federal level for legalization, and wanted to get to that a little bit too. And we're going to be, I didn't set it yet, but it is true that we're going to be joined by, but okay, I didn't mean to do this again, but I guess it's, that can't hurt to throw that up there again.
You're letting it linger a little long too, Jamie. That's good. Yeah.
That John's talking about the Darren McCarty. And then Darren actually came back for another event, and the representatives from the Youth Hockey Association showed up, and Darren was able to present him with the money that we raised for him a few months later.
Yeah. Well, I've been to many events with Darren McCarty and many restaurants with Darren McCarty, and it always happens that when DMAC's in the building, sooner or later somebody's going to recognize him as to who he is, and then his time is no longer his. Now he's standing there, and there's a stream of people coming in to shake his hands and get an autograph and a selfie, and he is so courteous, and he is so kind, and he gives in words of encouragement to the youth. You know, just a good dude. When you talk about people that really make cannabis look good in Michigan, yeah, DMAC, he's one of them.
And it just, well, I guess on that, one of the things, there's many things that, you know, of course, when he helps out, he's done so many different ways, but he's on this traditionally kind of conservative terrestrial, long-time historic radio station, and he does his sports show, WJR, you know, Darren McCarty show, and with Sean Belizean, and you know, it's great, but he told him, like, when I'm going to come do this show, I'm coming there as me, and in my new world, you know, cannabis is a part of it. And they said fine. And he talks about these issues, and he talks about them, you know, directly, and it's, you know, and it's awesome.
And that's a super station. You know, that is that reaches into Canada, reaches down into Indiana, Ohio, beyond. So we really have a wonderful diversity of people here in our industry who just knock it out of the park. Oh, I'm going to do this. So,
hey, so so as far as
the
legalization stuff goes, you know, there's the MORE Act. I think that's floating around in Congress, passed at the end of last session. There we go. Scott, remember we had a dinner up there before that.
The Tomahawk.
Yeah, before the slapstick tour at the hotel, and there's some good stuff. Some mushrooms were that night too, just coincidentally. How did CJ know? So that one, I remember, it's like the taxes were not great, weren't that happy with it, but they weren't ridiculous. I think there was like 5% to 8% over time in that one, but we didn't like some parts of it. Like it wouldn't allow people who had been in trouble for cannabis issues in the past, or who might even be operators in certain states at the time, even under their state laws, to be able to participate. And there was a few things we really didn't like about it. It's actually not something that I've looked at recently, and the federal stuff is something that I'm very interested in, but I really don't pay as much attention to it as I do like what's going on in the state. And but there was that, and then there's the most recent one with Schumer, which has like a tax structure that is just ridiculous on the surface. I want to say
it elevates to 25% or something, Jamie.
It starts at 10 and goes to 25 before too long. Or I mean, again, that's another one. Probably before we talk about it too deeply, you know. But still, that's enough for these purposes. But there's one that was just recently introduced, and it allows states. I mean, part of the issue is, and part of the considerations are, like, how is a federal, you know, structure going to look like? And are they going to be uniform throughout the states, or do you still be able to do it with interstate commerce and everything, but still have each state do it in the way they want to do it, or not do it if they don't want to do it? You know, it's difficult stuff to wade through. We had, you know, we've talked about that in these shows. We should get back to that conversation too, and spend a little bit more time on it now that there's some more movement with it. But this most recent one basically says states do it how they want to do it or not, and the tax is like 3%. And I appreciate
3.5%, actually.
3.5%, okay. And so, if there's an ability for that one to make sense to enough people, maybe it can be used as the basis for watering down some of the stuff in the other bills. And there's a middle ground there that would ultimately be something that could get passed and wouldn't be too ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, wishful thinking, I get it. I mean, that's like, you know, might be too much to ask.
I'm sorry, Jamie, please.
I said might be too much to ask, but you know, that would be the idea, I think.
Well, the two in my mind, the two bitter poison pills that come with federal legalization include taxation and interstate commerce. If we have interstate commerce to the degree where that 2-year oversupply in Oregon that's been sitting on the shelf and they can't sell, that stuff gets dumped in Michigan, there's an awful lot of Michigan regulated and unregulated businesses, frankly, that would have a problem staying afloat if all of a sudden inexpensive cannabis from someplace else just got dropped in our shores. So whenever we talk about federal legalization and we talk about interstate commerce, there has to be the ability of each individual state to dictate what they allow in, what they don't allow in, whether their testing standards are respected or not. And they should be able to opt out of letting other states bring any cannabis in. Frankly, we should protect our small businesses. Now, the other thing is, taxation. I can appreciate where on a national level, we tax everything, that a tax is almost inevitable. In an ideal world, like Jamie said, we'd have no tax, but that's not really living in the world that we live in nowadays. 3.5% tax, that's the lowest I've ever heard offered.
So Kristen, that's regular state sales tax. It's similar to over-the-counter meds, I think. And so that's looked at. Yeah. But there is a bill that would take that away, though, I believe. Unfortunately.
Cynthia Johnson?
Well, there's that, but isn't one of the other ones? Oh, the use tax is eliminated by the other bills that are tie-bar to the anti-caregiver bills.
Cynthia Johnson introduced a bill in the Michigan legislature to remove sales tax from cannabis sales also. I believe that's already out there.
Right.
So, yeah, but it's common practice to tax cannabis in all the different states and whether it's defined as medicine or not.
Rick Scott likes the tapestry. Is that a tapestry behind you? Or is that?
Oh, yeah. Where am I? Man, I'm at my place. I'm at my crib. Look.
Yes.
Tapestries. I could be in a closet. You'd never know it. But no.
No, again, this isn't an FDA approved drug or process, so it's considered more like an over-the-counter type scenario. That's why it gets the sales tax.
I bought Cognium today, which is a brain supplement, and I paid tax on that. So, I mean, different types of medicine are treated different ways. There is no one single rule for it. And with cannabis, we've always enjoyed the fact that it's not a prescription. It makes it easier for doctors to write it. It makes it easier for us to defend medical need in court. But, not being a prescription and only being a recommendation does mean it is subject to sales tax and other taxes.
Yeah, you'll hear people say prescription just because they kind of equate it, to medicine, who might not know. But there's a big distinction. There was a huge federal court battle over it. And it turns out that the doctors can, by way of having freedom of speech, recommend it. But there is no drug to prescribe that's been through all the standard FDA trials and all that kind of stuff.
Just like we referred to retail centers that sell cannabis as dispensaries, when in Michigan, the term dispensary is actually reserved by pharmacists in that particular industry for use just to describe their retail entities. That's why we had to come up with, Mike Calton came up with the term provisioning centers for medical marijuana. Jamie's laughing because he remembers that. He remembers that.
We haven't talked to them in a while, but early on, like back in Cave Radio and before there was video, we had Todd Pryor on here. We went through the story, the kind of quirky story of how some movement took place with getting a bill introduced for dispensaries early on. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but that is kind of a cool story. And I think, it's been a while since we've discussed it, and maybe now that we're kind of doing a different format, it'd be nice to have him back on.
Well, we can, since we've teased our audience, let's just give a real quick encapsulation. You want to do it, or do you want me to?
Oh, you please go ahead.
So we had a very difficult time getting stuff done in the early days of the cannabis industry, working with the legislature, working with lawmakers. And we were up against one particularly difficult situation with one particularly difficult representative. And we happened to be talking to Todd Pryor. Todd was an early cannabis pioneer in the industry in 10, 11, 12, stuff like that. Todd has a very wonderful mother. And as that name was mentioned, Todd's mother says, "Are you kidding me? I cut his hair. I'll get him to flip on this. I'll get him to switch." And in reality, that's exactly what happened. He came to her for a haircut and she gave him an earful. And all of a sudden, we had better access at the Snyder administration. I think that's what we're talking about, right, Jamie? Snyder administration?
Yeah, it was mainly because of Shooty, though. He had the weird group that the special like committee or whatever, the drug war committee that he put together that had Cropsey and some others in it, that ready to like do what they can do to hurt implementation of this bill. And they didn't really want to do much at all with it. But yeah, he thought he was kicking the can. Didn't realize that they're from the same little small areas, little town. They did go to visit him, and
Alan Cropsey, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Alan Cropsey.
Yeah, he was a drug war dude, and that's why he was chosen after he was done being in the legislature to be on, to work in the AG's office, who was dead set against all this shit.
First time I ever testified in the legislature was January 2010, and it was against the Kuipers, Kahn, Van Workum, and Cropsey bills, which was the first attempt at crafting oligopoly here in Michigan to craft what I think was 8 at that time was the proposal, 8
or
large
10, something like that,
8 or 10 large grows that would be the only source of cannabis supply for the entire state for the medical program. And there'd be, they would eliminate caregivers and just give these 10 people the ability to supply all medical patients everywhere. So we were successfully able to stop that. And that was right before Responsible Ohio came up, which was, right afterwards. And that was a move to put 10 gigantic growers in charge of the entire Ohio cannabis industry. So
Michigan Responsibility Councils, and they would have felt really empowered had that stuff worked out in Ohio. They would have like started pouring it on here for sure.
Yeah, that's.
I hope they like. I think they still wouldn't have won, but
that Michigan Responsibility Council was made up of mostly alcohol and tobacco industry guys who are still a thorn in our side, who are still paying lobbyists in Lansing to try and shrink the medical program or to twist it to their personal advantage. Some of those alcohol and tobacco guys have gigantic grows in the regulated market and they're selling their shit. So, yeah, Christian, I'd love to tell that story more, but it would be better if Jamie did it because he gets into more detail, and I'm just trying to cover the highlights because at 5 o'clock, I think we've got our guest coming on, and that's in a couple minutes. But that is a great story. Helen Pryor, there's a ton of people there that did great for us that would probably never make a postage stamp, in the future. They're probably not going to have their photo hung in a museum someplace, but damn it, if we didn't have them, it would have been maybe a different outcome right now.
She's also the basis of when people say the grandma test. When you go to a dispensary, that came out of that too.
Yep.
Kevin Pines. Okay, so True Cannabis, great place. Also, Kevin posted today that he recently got his records successfully expunged, and that Glenn, Great Lakes Expungement Network, Redemption, and born of a project between Redemption and Sons and Daughters, formed into its own organization with Ryan Basor and Josie Scoggin and Josh Covert and myself. And that was pretty cool to read that. Yeah. And also, when we talk about how the MICIA is in opposition to these bills, Kevin was one of the people that analyzed the bills, and obviously, since it was unanimous, according to Robin, was in support of, and also would fit his philosophy and how he looks at this and all that kind of stuff. So that's an example of an industry person who totally understands the caregiver system and wouldn't want to do anything to hurt it.
And I think there's more of them out there than there are people that want to destroy the caregiver system for the hope or the promise of some perceived business advantage. It's just evil. When you're trying to separate a person who has a significant illness from the medicine that helps them with that significant illness, man, you go to hell. You go straight to hell, and you don't get the pearly gates, and you don't get anything else. No matter what good deeds you do, if you interfere with that, if you stop sick kids from getting their medicine, there's no redemption for you afterwards. It's just the worst. So.
the bill, we didn't, one of the positive bills, what would be a good bill without being tied by anything, of course, would be Jaden's Law. Representative Garza, I can't think of the House bill number at the moment, and obviously Amy Carter. I'm driving that. That's designed around kids using their medicine at school, and it was being worked on, over the summer, since before the summer. I know that My Compassion and stuff, we're working with Amy, and that Amy's kind of taking the lead on this project now, I believe, but that's how it got going. And it just shows like the lack of real interest and understanding of it to a degree, because if it were really important, that's one of the ones that could have been prioritized, like some of the other ones were, and taken care of at a time in which a lot of the school year could have been applied to it. But it just goes to show you where it is. Now, as that one starts getting talked about in this climate, that's something that will get thrown into the horse trading discussion.
So here's my thing though. If the bill, for example, the most recently introduced bill you talked about, which would advantage women and social equity winners, if that's such a great idea, let's do that and just not tie bar it to the other. Just like Jaden's Law is not tie barred to something else, just like the decrim bill doesn't seem like it's going to be tie barred to anything else either. There's lots of ways in which a single bill or a pair of bills passes through without having to have all the rest of these fetters attached to it. This just weighs it down. This is just a way for them to try and sweeten the pot. The other thing is, Jamie, you know this as well as I do. You can pass something in the House of Representatives, and when it goes to the Senate, they can just take it away. They just take it away. It's happened before. They make a promise to us in the House, and then a senator submits an amendment, and then within the space of literally 90 seconds, all your work in the House of Representatives goes poof, because they passed an amendment.
I'm with Trish on this. And with Rick, what he just said. I mean, let each one of these stand on their merits. If they can develop a reason to peel back plant counts for caregivers that makes sense to everybody, then let that be something that withstands that test. We all know there's not a good reason for it, so that probably wouldn't. Do we want to see pediatric kids being able to use cannabis, on school grounds when they're at school, like just any other meds? Of course. We want to get rid of a tax for people just buying it for medicine? Of course. That those things would pass the litmus test, So it's another red flag. I mean, some of the lawmakers, as we were discussing with them, Trish, who was just on, and Amy, and many others, Zara, have had just like many, conversations, with these people.
Right. And when they find out the details of what's going on, then they're shocked and they don't support. Or when they've been led to believe that the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association was involved in the formation of these bills, which they were not. When they learn that they've been lied to by Linder about that, then they stop. So this is what lawmakers tell us. This is not us just making stuff up. This is what actual lawmakers tell us is going on, not just what we believe is happening. All right. Welcome to the show, Anton Harb. Thanks for joining
us. What's up, guys? How you doing?
Oh, we're awesome.
You're discussing the tough stuff with these bills, huh?
Well, we are, and we've been doing it for a while, talking about some history and some tough choices that have been made in the past, and also a lot of optimism. A lot of optimism for people working together. And I really hope that's what people take away from this show today, is that we have all this forward momentum, and we're going to continue to push it.
We're going to do the unpopular thing and create positivity and unity instead of divisiveness, right? That's the unpopular thing to do nowadays. I don't know if it's uncool or what, but we're going to do it.
Yeah. The human nature right now has everybody at their throats, whether it's politics, vaccine, anything. People are just so willing to throw hands at the drop of a coin. It's terrible in our society nowadays. But we're supposed to be the people who are a little more peaceful because we're a little more mellow, right? We're a little more THC'd. So we should be that.
It is not mellow. It is not. I wish it was. You would think it would be more mellow, right? But boy, I think a lot of good is going to come out of this. Like a forest fire. Sometimes you got to burn the forest down in order to bring back something good. So I think the group we have now is on the path to hopefully not only creating change in what we're doing now, but for the future, because this is not going to end. I think you guys know more than anybody that this is going to be an ongoing issue. And it's going to be dirty, and it's going to be greasy, and it's every man for themselves, so to speak, every person for themselves. And I think as long as we stay together, I think we'll come out on top. I hope.
Well, let me give a better introduction to Anton. Anton is the man behind the Hero Project, the veteran behind the Hero Project. So the Hero Project is a Michigan-based charity. Anton, why don't you talk about that for a moment, if you would?
Sure. So a little about myself. So I am a combat veteran. I'm from Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was an artillery officer, served in Operation Iraqi Freedom 3, and served in northern Iraq, Mosul, Iraq. I was in a reconnaissance unit. And I came back with bad PTSD, like a lot of folks do. And I ended up retiring. I did a lot of different, I worked for the federal government for a while, and retired in 2016 just because my PTSD got so bad. I went off the rails, and you know how that goes for a lot of folks, right? Especially with PTSD, our veterans, some of us are undiagnosed, some of us are hooked on who knows what. But at the end of the day, none of us are getting to the root of our real problems and trying to solve those things. So I had an idea a couple of years ago. I started with a Facebook group, the Michigan Veterans for Cannabis Network. And it was just an idea to bring veterans together. I, for years, didn't leave my house, right? So Facebook was the one way I could reach out to the world. And Facebook groups are the one place you can kind of interact and talk about things. Sometimes, the conversations don't go as well as they're supposed to, but it's a way to interact. So I came up with this Facebook group and was trying to get the message out there, and was approached in April, I believe. Mike Brennan, who we all know from the 420 Post, approached me about a new 501c3 nonprofit that they were trying to stand up with Dan and Connie Sparrow from Sparrow Consulting, who does the Cannabis Social Equity Foundation, and Dan Keelan, and we have Rob Robar and Penny Moonbeam as well, who are all awesome human beings. So, but they didn't have a veteran. And I think it's kind of hard to get a veteran nonprofit organization going if you don't have any veteran representation. So they approached me, and at the time, the Facebook group was a good idea, but I wanted to do more. So we launched the Hero Project, or it's Hero Project. We call it the Hero Project, and ironically, there is another foundation called the Hero Project, right? So we kind of get mixed up with them. So it's Hero Project USA, and we launched on Memorial Day, and it's been going pretty good. I think it's had its ups and its downs. We were founded on the mission of raising cannabis dollars from the legal industry and becoming a bridge between this legal cannabis industry that we've put together and these nonprofits who can't accept any cannabis money, right? That we wanted to bridge that gap. So through the Cannabis Social Equity Foundation, we were able to do that. We're able to take legal cannabis dollars from anyone in the industry, and we can introduce it to the Cannabis Social Equity Foundation, and then disperse that from our nonprofit, which we've been blessed off on by the IRS. It's a novel idea. It's a new way of doing things, and the goal was to partner with different industry representatives, and like, for example, the Helping Friendly hemp company, Rob Robar. He was the first one to come on board, and the idea was to create a specific Hero branded product. In this case, we have CBD chews, and with Rob, 10% of each sale comes back to the Hero Project. So the goal was to link up with as many industry representatives as we can, and try and set up these donations however they want to do it. The industry is just getting started. There's a lot of businesses coming online. So it's not always easy to get that type of deal put into place, if you will. So I've recently found, if you just ask people, if you'd like to make a donation to our foundation, if you think what we're doing is cool and you like what we're doing, just make us a donation. We'd be more than happy to get that, those funds that we then collect in our foundation account. We then, as a board, will accept grant applications from other 501c3s. I'm working with a couple awesome ones right now. Operation Valhalla, I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but it's run by Nick Antonucci, which is Darren McCarty's manager. So we have been talking lately. And another one's Vet Life, who is a Michigan 501c3, and they're doing a lot to bring resources to veterans who just don't know the resources exist. So we're making these kind of strategic partnerships, and then through the grant process, we want to get these folks the resources, which is the money, get them money directly to their organizations who are providing direct services to veterans, because we're not really doing that, right? We don't have a specific yet. That may come in the future. But we don't have a specific service that we're offering. We kind of want to be the piggy bank, if that makes sense. And it was a slow start, but things have taken off. I'd say, over the past couple of months, it's gotten into it's a real thing now, right? And I think thanks to Rick, and Jamie, and Robin Schneider, and just there's so many industry participants who have kind of stepped up, and now we're getting interest from outside the veteran and cannabis space. So I hope people see the value in what we're doing. We're an all volunteer board. The one thing I like about this, I've been retired 5 years. This has allowed me to kind of have a sense of purpose. I haven't been in the workforce, right? And this has kind of given me an opportunity to still have some worth and some purpose in this life, and kind of give back. And there's no strings attached. I do it because I've been the guy who I'm a cancer survivor, and I am also a suicide survivor. So I know what the level of despair you can reach when you don't have resources. And my goal is, if I can prevent one veteran from committing suicide, and when I say veterans as well, but anybody really, I think cannabis is not just a veteran specific medicine. So I hope people see value in my experience and perspective, and hopefully we can make the world a better place. That's what we hope for, right?
Well, I think making the world a better place is what we're going to be doing on Saturday. I just wanted to mention that Penny that you talked about is Penny Milkey from Northern Specialty Health, which is a cannabis retailer in the Upper Peninsula, about as far north as you can get and still be in the continental United States, actually. And they're slaying it up there. They're doing a great job, and they take time out to help. And of course, Rob Robar with the Helping Friendly Company, Helping Friendly Hemp Company. He's just a wonderful person too, and a guy who makes sure he gets around the United States and shares the stories of the things that you guys are doing with everybody. Talk a little bit about this Saturday coming up, Anton. It is, by the way, today is November 16. November 16.
Yes.
And on November 20th. For those that may be watching us on cable television on a replay, I just would want them to watch this and
for sure
on this Saturday.
So I was approached about 3 weeks ago, maybe, by Kyle Cohey of the Lighten Up Provisioning Center located in Flint, Michigan. They are the only veteran locally owned dispensary in Michigan. We found there are other growers, veteran growers, disabled veterans and stuff. They're kind of coming out of the woodwork now. But Kyle had approached me and mentioned that they would like to do a turkey giveaway. Initially, it was supposed to be 100 turkeys. They wanted to give 100 turkeys away to needy families. And it quickly blew up into 1,000 turkeys. And they wanted to join up with the Hero Project from a nonprofit standpoint to pull this off. And so it started off with just a little, we're going to see if we can get some people to show up and give these turkeys out. And it's blown up into now, last I heard, Director Brisboe is going to be making an appearance, which is pretty cool. We have Darren McCarty, who is going to join us between the hours of 11 and 12. So the word has gotten out there, and the goal right now is to, with 1,000 turkeys between the hours of 10 and 8, we're going to have to give away 3 turkeys a minute. I hope that's possible. I don't know if that's going to happen. I know we've set aside, I believe, 100 turkeys to basically deliver to folks who are housebound. They can't get out of their homes. So that's 900 turkeys, I guess. But we've been pretty strong with the advertising. This is I think, like we've spoken, that the industry's kind of fractured right now. There's a lot going on in different spaces within the industry. This is just good, positive vibes. Everybody and their brother who wants to come and volunteer, I don't care what your affiliation is. None of that matters. We're here to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, because we're going to step up and we're going to provide for the community. And really, that's what cannabis is about, is community, right? And I think there's no other way. We have the only veteran cannabis related nonprofit in the state of Michigan, one of the only in the United States, linking up with the only veteran locally owned provisioning center in Michigan to serve one of the most disadvantaged communities in the United States. Flint has gone through the mill, right? And if we can, for me, I kind of have this, I don't know if it's a vision that people will come and get these turkeys in a time where things can't be afforded. Turkeys can't be found. Food can't be afforded. And I hope they come and they take this turkey and they take it home and they cook it up on Thanksgiving and everybody sits around their table and they create memories, right? Because I think we need more good memories in our society. More families need to come together, and that's not happening. So if we can kind of make that happen, I think it's a positive thing.
So and I agree, and thank you very much. And I know a lot of people are going to be out there helping you out. There's a lot of people who are discussing it. I know Rick is going to be there. Many others. We've thrown some up there, Ryan and Joe, I think. But how is this going to work? Is it getting words going out that they're there, and then somebody who wants to come by and get one comes by and gets one?
I think they roll down their window when you throw the turkey at the car as they drive by. That's what I was told. That's the reason I'm showing up.
Hey, we made High Times. The word is definitely getting out. We made High Times magazine. So that was kind of like the mic drop. I could drop the mic now. It was kind of cool to be a part of something that was mentioned in High Times. The goal is, I guess you wouldn't think 1,000 turkeys. I don't think people realize how much space that takes up, but it's about a semi trailer. So Kyle and his crew were able to source basically a refrigerated semi trailer full of these turkeys. And there'll be a couple of tents. We have coffee beaneries showing up. The weather right now, doesn't look too bad. It might be a little cool, a little cloudy, but no rain that I've seen. And anybody over the age 18 and up, there's a waiver to sign. And Lighten Up is asking folks to join up their Best Buds program, to which they can get donate I guess price breaks and whatnot at the dispensary. But so anybody over the age of 18 is more than welcome to show up. We're just going to start a line and start hucking turkeys. And we have billboards. We have a billboard up in Flint. We've been trying to get through the various media avenues. Been just trying to get the word out, because if we all show up and there's nobody standing in line for a turkey, we're going to look a little silly, right? So I think Kyle and his crew have been working overtime to get the word out. I think that, we've been working, I've been on 420 Post and just I was on iHemp Hour last week, and I'm doing this show, just trying to get the word out so folks know what we're doing. If there are turkeys left over, we're going to continue on into the 21st. They'll be slinging turkeys that day as well too. So anybody that wants one is welcome. No questions asked.
So for people that aren't familiar, by the way, that Lighten Up Provisioning Center is my neighborhood provisioning center. That's the place where I like to go to when I need a retail environment. That's right off Pearson Road on I-75. If you're anywhere along the 75 corridor, it's super easy to get to. It's also just a little bit north of 69, where 69 intersects with 75. So Mount Morris Township out there. That's an area I've lived here for a while, and I've seen a lot of businesses fail in that zone. My bank actually is no longer a bank. Now it's a hair and nail salon. Why? Because the bank got robbed too often. No matter how many security guards they had there, it still kept getting robbed.
Yep.
There's a lot of need in the zone. Just on the other side of I-75, it's kind of rough. It's kind of tough. That's, I grew up in Flint. I grew up on the north side, and that's what we're talking about, the north side of Flint here. So it's a challenging area. I'm very hopeful we'll be able to give away a lot of turkeys.
Yeah. Well, any relief. I think a lot of what we do with cannabis, we call it a medicine, and no matter what you're trying to treat, you're trying to bring relief. And I think we can use the cannabis space to bring relief for other things. This turkey, I hope it's people take advantage of that to it's not a handout, right? Like, we're trying to bring the community together and just help folks who this Thanksgiving may not be able to find a turkey. I was at the store the other day. There were like 3 turkeys sitting there. Usually there's hundreds, right? So yeah, I think it's the perfect place in Michigan to do this.
Well, I happened to be at the grocery store earlier today, and I can tell you the cost of all other types of meat is through the roof. So a free turkey is a timely way. I know that, having grown up in the city, a lot of people don't cook. A turkey like this is something that might not be attractive to them, but I hope people will still come down, even if they don't want the turkey, just so they can get the information, they can make the connection, especially if you're a vet. Talk to some other people who've been walking a mile in your shoes. Well, and really, that's the goal, is to get people talking again, right? Bring us back together so that we can show love and support to each other.
Excuse me. There will be representatives from various different veteran organizations. I talked to 2 today that are planning to show up, along with Darren. Come say hi to Darren. He's a good dude. What I love about Darren is he just wants to be a member of the community, right? And he really does take that role very seriously, being a man of the people. So I thought he was perfect for this particular project, and I'm glad he said yes. And Nick, his manager, is a combat veteran, and I think the veteran community in Michigan is starting to come together in a way that we really haven't seen before. And it's not just about veterans hooking up veterans or veterans supporting veteran issues. We want to give back to everybody, right? So I think this is an example of veterans giving back to folks who are not necessarily veterans. And we're going to have representatives from all over the cannabis industry, every advocacy agency, we're going to have government agency. Everybody's going to be represented. And I think that's the cool thing, because I don't know when the last time we've had something like where everybody's been represented like this in one space. So,
cannabis is an amazing plant. I can remember with Kevin Spittler and in the early days with MedJoint and his association with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Zahara Abbas has really gotten with the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation and some of the things that she does. Hero Project here, touching veterans with cannabis, which is something Stephen Jacob Lull has done, and Dakota Cerny used to do too. So we have a big blanket, and it touches a lot of people, and it is kind of very exciting at times to be in an industry that's just not like maybe banking, where
right,
there's really not a whole lot new. We got new color file folders today. Woo, right. But in our industry, if you're looking for it, there's always something for you to do. There's always people for you to meet, and there's always someone you can talk to in our industry. And these events are one of the ways you meet those people.
And if you take it to extrapolate that out a little bit more, what has cannabis as a plant medicine done to our community in the progression? Now we're talking in theogenic plants, right? I've gotten 3 calls today from 3 different veterans from just separate walks of life asking me about plant medicines, ayahuasca, psilocybin, and cannabis opened that door, and it opened the door for the years the VA we've been pumped full of all kinds of horrible stuff, and now we have these substances that are coming to light, and I think cannabis was the bridge that is leading to bigger things and solving bigger things within our society. It's pretty cool to see.
Will Smith just came out. Will Smith, the actor, the musician, the pretty much everything guy. He came out to say that he's done ayahuasca about 20 times. And that it was a life-changing experience. And after the very first time, he said, I looked at things completely different after that.
I'll tell you this. So a quick story about my ayahuasca journey. I went to Peru in 2018 after I started ketamine therapy actually in 2018 as an alternative to the pharmaceuticals the VA was giving me, and took a trip to Peru, right? And I had, it was pretty cool. We were up in the Andes Mountains in this like ancient Inca village, and I had drank the ayahuasca, and it really was the most eye-opening experience of my life. And I'll say that from a PTSD standpoint, one of the things that was most beneficial to me symptomatically that helped actually brought me relief and quality of life was the ayahuasca. And, since I did that, I was actually accepted into the Native American church about 3 years ago. I'm not Native American, but there is a Native American church who accepts combat veterans into their circles, so we can legally access the ayahuasca, the peyote, or the psilocybin, and not have to worry about going to jail under the protection of the religious church laws. So, I'm really hot and heavy into that space. I'm working with Decriminalize Michigan as well. I'm kind of one of their groups, and I think we'll see more of my face in that space as well. Just imagine where we could be in like 2 years. It'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, many people didn't believe we'd be where we are right now with cannabis. Mm-hmm. And it's true that the advances we've made with cannabis and with hemp, right, have assisted other natural medicines in the way that they're being considered as legal alternatives now. And also in opening the eyes of some people in the medical profession to be able to advocate for them, because we know doctors in some instances have been wanting to try experiments with these for a long time and have been denied the opportunity by the federal government.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to enroll now. There's an MDMA study in, I think it's Johns Hopkins that's doing it, or one of the big hospitals. And I'm trying, because the experiences I've had with these different substances has really brought a quality of life back that I didn't have, right? And a veteran today gave me a call about the ketamine therapy, right? These are still things that are expensive. It's out of your pocket. Ketamine's the boogeyman. It's a psychedelic, right? And insurances won't pay for it. So I think it isn't as big as a boogeyman as it was in the past, but these are still things that people don't have access to. And, it's kind of funny what we're talking about with cannabis and all these House bills that have been introduced. I think it's a foreshadowing of where we're going to be in maybe, say, 4 years. Let's say we're able to get this law passed that Senator Irwin had submitted to the Senate. And we actually do decriminalize entheogenic plants in the state of Michigan. What are the prohibitionists going to come back and do at us 2 years into that space? You know what I'm saying? So I think what we're doing in the cannabis space is going to be a good template of how we fight the prohibitionists in the entheogenic plant space as well. So the work that you both are doing is writing that template, and it's going to be I think is going to be the future of how we attack these situations as they show up from either a political standpoint or just a health and human services standpoint. You know what I mean?
I do. And I'll tell you that we've often said the programs need to be shepherded through, which means we need to make sure the legislature effectuates the bills the way that they were intended when they were written, and that there's no corruption of purpose by amendment or when judicial ruling disfavors us, that we provide enough resources to be able to rectify that. It is a requirement. Once you do this, you can't just walk away. You have to finish the job, man.
Well, that you're exactly right. And I think people think we're just going to walk away. I think that's the consensus, it's an alternate reality that some folks are living in, and I think they're gonna be sorely dismayed when they see we're not going away. We're going to take this issue and we're going to progress it, and we're going to use it on entheogenic plants laws. I mean, that's something we're going to have to sit down, and it just can't be a lobbyist that writes those laws, right? You can't do that, because those are the folks who generally don't have the experience with these substances. So hopefully what we're doing in the cannabis space, as far as dealing with our lawmakers and working with them and creating a sense of unity, I hope that translates to other things. When things like Jaden's Law pop up, when these common sense issues that should just be a rubber stamp, it should just be a rubber stamp, really. I mean, let's be honest, right?
Yep.
when these issues come up, we have a template that we can go to fast track this, because there's no way that this shouldn't be a thing. This should be a bipartisan human rights issue. And I don't think it's seen that way. We've still taken the criminal justice approach. In the criminal justice view, we want to focus on the problems, the homes being devalued, and these it's not reality, right? So it's going to be a shift in perspective, and it's going to take a while. It's taken 70, 80 years, and we're just getting to the point now to where we can actually in public fight these people without them taking everybody to jail, right? So we've come a long way, I think.
We've referenced it several times this broadcast. Jaden's Law is a proposal here in Michigan, which mirrors proposals in other states, which would allow registered medical marijuana pediatric patients, children, to be able to use non-smoked cannabis medicines in the same manner in which they're able to use other prescription medicines while they're at school. These are things that are in pill form or perhaps in a droplet form. These are not things that would cause a disruption to anyone else. But currently, because of the way the rules were written, those children and the parents that love them and bring them, or guardians that bring them their medicine, have to do so off school grounds. It's extremely disruptive.
Yeah.
And we just want cannabis medicines to be given the same credence that other medicines are.
We have, what I do think, when I'm trying to think strategically and how can we get at the other side, I think one perspective that we have in this whole fight that we'll be able to use in the future is those prohibitionists have admitted it's medicine, finally, right? And the fact that they've admitted it's a medicine, I think that's going to hopefully bring a little more legitimacy in their mind that we shouldn't be having to drag a child out of school, disrupt their day 1,000 feet from a school just so they can take their medicine, which we've all agreed now it is a medicine, right? You'll give them Ritalin and you'll give them whatever other medications that they have for various diseases, but
So Amy describes it too, that her son's it's like a spectacle. Like everybody knows what's going on, and it's it's disruptive, and there's lots of reasons to do that. Nobody should have to feel weird about an alternative approach that can be administered in the exact same way as the other approaches are.
If you're a sick kid, you don't want extra attention drawn upon your sickness, because we know that children can be cruel, and you really just want to be like everybody else. You don't want to have some kind of tag on you, especially if you're already a challenged individual too. So we talk about, some of the big moments in life. They happen at school, many of the things that happen to make a difference to us happen while we're being educated. So we don't want to interfere with anyone's participation in or enjoyment of, that experience.
Exactly. Yeah. Trauma is trauma. We don't want to lend to any more issues that children have, or adults for that matter, right? It's gotten to the point now where, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, right? And that's silly that we have been shamed into believing what we legally voted into by an overwhelming majority, that I should feel ashamed of that. And I'm hoping to break the stigma. I want people to see. I'll talk about all that stuff any day of the week. And I think one power I have is just the way I tell my story. I want people to know what I've been through. I'm overtly open about things that I've done in the past, just because if somebody learns from one thing, if you made a movie about my life from like 2014 to 17, it'd be a good movie, right? I was in a tough spot, but hopefully you could, we get veterans to the point to where they get over the hump, that they're able to work. They want to talk about jobs, veteran jobs, and veteran hunger, and veteran this and veteran that. None of that matters until we solve the mental health problems that these folks are having, because they'll never have a meaningful relationship. They'll never hold a job. And it's breaking these types of stigmas and getting folks to understand that there are alternatives that, veterans or not. We're definitely in a mental health crisis, and I'm not hearing too many, other than the psychedelics that are, I'm not hearing too many solutions, and we need solutions.
Yeah, we went through a wave of closures of mental health facilities nationally in the last 10 to 20 years, and a lot of people that need help, not necessarily long-term help, but just need some assistance or some guidance. That's gone. You know what that really does create for us in 2021? It creates a lot of buildings that are available for us to be able to rejuvenate that particular program and have vet specific or mom specific or whatever you need, cancer specific group meetings for people who use cannabis in order to network. We had a question on here by Jane, who's done a great job contributing today in the chat. Thank you, Jane, who asked about finding doctors for her son. I can tell you, Jane, right now, as soon as you meet Amy Carter, she'll get you taken care of. She'll know how to find people for you. She's done that to help other people for a long time. And it's one of the big assets that we have in our community is people that care, and because they care, they learn, and they pass that along. So, we really do need some additional outreach for our veteran community. And every veteran I talk to, I don't know if I've talked to anybody that was satisfied with their VA experience.
I just dealt with them today. As we sit here and speak. I'm sick in my stomach because of I get just so pissed off dealing with them, just because the access to the services. It takes me months. It takes me months to even get someone to reply to me to even try and schedule an appointment. And it's a bureaucracy, right? Healthcare based on government bureaucracy is never going to win. These are people who are driven by a budget. They're driven by dollars and cents, and the more money that they squander, the worse the problem gets. And I'd say, Rick, my solution to this whole thing was make the VA a Medicare program, like any other Medicare Advantage program that we give to folks on Social Security disability. And we pay the Medicare, the Advantage plan folks. We shut the buildings down. We fire these people, and we sail off into the sunset. Lincoln's vision, it didn't work out.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that there are special needs for veterans, and perhaps the VA has some programs that would be worth saving as independent efforts one way or another, or is folded into a different department. I think your point is correct. As far as a healthcare provider, the VA is absolutely not where they need to be.
Yeah.
And I am not a veteran. I never served. I'm not trying to speak from a position of experience. That's just been what I've heard from so many people over years.
There have been good doctors. I've been in VAs all over this country, and there are some good ones. They're very few and far between. And I mean, most of those guys, when you see them, I mean, they just put their hands in it. We can't help you, right? And the research that they conduct, again, is government bureaucracy research. Because if they were really for healthcare, why would they not be? Why do we have to force their hand to conduct cannabis research in PTSD when veterans are killing themselves at 22 people a day? And that's actually understated. The number's actually more than that. It's just that many states don't report those statistics, right? So when we talk about, I mean, the benefits are great. Keep the benefits section, maybe keep a small research section, but the healthcare, our facilities are 40, 50 years old, some of these places. And in this big infrastructure bill that Biden just passed, the one thing that they cut out of there was, I believe it was $40 million to upgrade some of these facilities. So clearly the government isn't really concerned that we have proper up-to-date medical technology, with medical technology and infrastructure. It's not an issue. So we'll see. Well, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it's a shame that we have to say we'll see where it goes when we're talking about the lives of people who absolutely put their lives on the line for us. So,
yeah.
And that's the reality that we face in 2021. There's not enough dollars to go around for everyone except for, Bezos and those guys who can have a space race. How can I spend more money on trying to be the first guy to launch my private ass into outer space?
Mm-hmm.
What a situation for people who are hungry and starving to see this excess, this display of excess.
Mm-hmm.
It's just horrible.
It's the American dream at work. I think at some point we took a wrong turn. Capitalism's awesome. America's awesome. I think the idea that it was founded on is awesome. And I just think that the context as a culture, we've taken it to a negative place. You're right. The excess and the everything, me, the self-centered. I hope we change, but I mean, I don't see it changing. I mean, it's rough, right?
It is. When you think about the United States as a world leader and as a participant on the planet Earth, when we set an example of we have so much money that our rich people can just go ahead and buy their own space program. Mm-hmm. And then if you're from Africa, if you're from a struggling country, if you're from one of those Polynesian nations that's looking to go underwater, if that 1 meter sea rise takes place, like they're predicting, like you're losing 60% of the landmass of your fucking nation, and you're watching Bezos blast off into space. Captain Kirk's fat ass goes up.
Yeah, floating around. Yeah, there he is.
And it was kind of cool. But did you notice, I don't know if any of you saw, when he came back to Earth, his wife is some trophy hottie who had like a bare midriff thing going on, and she was jumping up and down. She was so excited for her man. It was just so cliche.
What do you think that seat cost? He spent millions on that seat, I bet.
I think they gave it to him. I think they wanted to do it for the notoriety for the program. I mean, who else would draw that kind of attention? We're all talking about it. I don't know who the other guys were, but Shatner does it, and I think the whole world pays attention because of his Star Trek fame. So, as a world leader, we can do better. As a partner for the world, we can do better. One of the ways we can do better is by getting hemp made more available to developing nations. I've been saying this for a long time, for years now. If we had hemp in arid nations in sub-Saharan Africa, we would have less drought, where we would have less famine. If you had hemp applied in the Amazon rainforest, when they delumber a spot of land in order to just grow grass, to grow cows so that they can sell them to McDonald's for McRib sandwiches, right? And then in 4 years, when all that grass is no longer good and growing because of all the erosion and everything else, they have to go cut down another section of trees in order to do the same thing again. And that slow chomping of the rainforest is why we're deforesting that nation. If we had hemp planted in that spot instead of grass for cows, how much more would that help? And the erosion control. There's a million different ways hemp can benefit the planet. And the American government and the American people, we need to be the ones leading the push, because we were the ones that led the push to take it away from the world in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. CBD and hemp products and the Delta 8 and those types of things, they're cool, right? But they're only a minor portion of the equation. What the real impressive part about the hemp is the sustainability, the hemp concrete, the hemp woods, the fact that hemp can produce infrastructure at that point is mind-boggling. And just the environmental component of the way that hemp interacts with the environment and its production of CO2 and helping with that. Nobody talks about the climate crisis, right? Like, you're right. Half the world's going to be underwater in 50 years, but we're not taking every advantage that we can to solve the problem. And yeah, hemp is, I think in 50 years, we're going to look back and cannabidiol, the different cannabinoids and hemp itself, this plant, is going to shift a lot of the way society works. Look at the batteries. They're saying the hemp batteries that they replaced that are, who knows if they start ending up in these electric vehicles and we can get away from fossil fuels and things of that nature. Now we're making the environment more sustainable for our children and future generations. And I mean, really, that's the goal, right?
And the oil companies are happy about that, just like they were with it in the 30s and the 40s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the coal companies, the oil men, they're all sweating bullets, because as technology progresses and people realize that climate change is a real thing, you can't deny it at this point. I mean, the weather's been weird, right? For years, it's been odd, right? So I think that we're gonna be forced. We're gonna be forced to shift perspective, and it's gonna be because of something not good, either an environmental crisis, a food crisis, or some sort of other crisis that'll pop up, and it's going to force our hand. So you kind of want to cut this off, get ahead of this whole thing. And I don't know. Again, I don't know how it'll shake out. I'm not feeling good about it, but we'll see.
Well, here's what I know. We will do our very best to not pay attention to it until absolutely the last second, and then it will be too late for us to do the meaningful things. Mankind is resilient. I'm sure that over the next 1,000 years, mankind will have found a way to deal with the crisis. But right now, we're laying the foundation for that 1,000-year success on a day-to-day basis right here. Switching over to electric vehicles, reducing carbon emissions, stopping the melting of the permafrost, if that's possible. There's different strategies to stop the permafrost from melting in some areas. That's releasing carbon that has been sequestered in the earth for a long time. The concept of replacing trees. I was listening to National Public Radio the other day, and they had a wonderful woman on who had helped plant 35,000 fruit trees in Niger or Ethiopia, one of the places, because they had lumbered all their trees down long ago, and there was nothing but scrub left. And these would not only provide shade but food. And eventually, when they fell, they would be wood to be used too. So that's a long-term sustainable solution. I think hemp is a much more short-term.
I agree with you. I was just in Egypt in April. Now that you bring it up, like how they made stuff out of nothing, and the Egyptians, it's crazy because they're in the middle of this desert. There's nothing there. And it's just shocking to see how they were able to take the concept that you're referring to and build it out. So they have rivers and dams and crops, and they're building, so we'll places like Ethiopia, I think we're going to learn a lot of lessons from struggling nations that we haven't taken notice of because we haven't been in their shoes yet. We just haven't gotten there. Right. So hopefully we can look up the hemp. I think is going to be, we're going to find more uses for it than it's going to explode. But right now it's all CBD, right? I mean, really, right now the focus is CBD, Delta 8, trying to make these supplements or products or medicines. So I think until we figure out exactly what we're truly working with, then we'll kind of know what direction we can take it in.
Well, the other thing, Anton, here in the United States, even we're experiencing some climate change. Lake Mead is at its lowest level ever. They got a 10-year drought in the West. Some of the rivers are dried up to the point where fish species can no longer swim upstream to be able to spawn and reproduce. So the concept of places that used to be good for grapes, which are probably not going to be as good for grapes anymore because of the temperature change, places that grew the hell out of some corn may be less suitable for corn.
Yeah. The Yukon River didn't have enough salmon for people who live off sustainable food sources for the rivers, the elk, the moose, all those things. They couldn't even fish the river this year because the salmon didn't run. So, I mean, this is a long-term thing that we need to take a peek at.
Yep. And there may not be much we can do about the weather, although we should continue to try to do the best we can to fight global warming. But what we can do is offer an alternative as far as sustainable food sourcing and sustainable energy. Gus Rosania, who is a professor at the University of Michigan, was on our program. And we had just a wonderful discussion about taking cannabis plants into space and having cannabis plants be part of Elon Musk's proposed Mars space station. The goal there would be to send prepackaged canisters, which when they landed at the Mars surface would then begin a greenhouse action, and then to decide which plants would be the most beneficial for you to grow, which would require the least water, the least pesticide, the least fertilizer, the least amount of light. And his decision was obviously hemp, but also mushrooms. Mushrooms provide a number of different benefits, and they can grow even in the absence of light. So when you're talking about space food, hemp seeds and mushrooms should be at the top of the menu.
Yep. I'm fascinated with the biology of that. Most people. I'm sorry.
Nothing. I said all that stuff. Having a lot of cannabis and mushrooms on hand will make it easier for those settlers when they start interacting with the civilization that's already been living there.
Martians on mushrooms. That'd be good, right?
Yeah. That's a movie title, right?
I love I mean, most people that with the advocacy thing that I've been doing, but I'm a grower, right? That's what I do. I'm a caregiver, and I love just when we talk about the biology of the plant, and just I like meeting another grower who's passionate as well, because it doesn't make any sense when I speak to most people, right? Like, just I like getting into the science of it, and it's a cool plant, and I hope that other people will find solace in its existence that hasn't necessarily, we need a reverence for not only hemp or cannabis, but we need a reverence for plants in general, right?
Well, and I think that part of that reverence comes with the respect for the people who got us to where we are, the John Sinclairs of the world, the Carl Sagans of the world, to be honest with you. When we start talking about people that have actually made a difference, Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Gupta's CNN special, about weed, that was a game changer for a lot of people in the United States of America who couldn't understand why those damn Californians or those stupid Coloradans would want to legalize it. And all of a sudden the explanation was laid out right there before them.
Yeah, it's getting hard to refute the evidence, but the problem is when we produce evidence, they try and discredit it, and that's the beauty of this nice $17 million grant that we have to the MAPS Foundation, right? We're going to nip this whole thing in the bud. We're going to produce some real research. We're going to get some real data that we can produce to the FDA that they're not going to be able to refute. It's not going to, there's going to be no questioning at that point. So
Rob Robar suggests we add Terrence McKenna to the list of people that we just talked about. It was a short list. There's lots more names on there, but Terrence McKenna certainly part of it too. Yeah. When we talk about worldwide awareness of the cannabis plant, Dr. Lester Grinspoon, a Harvard professor, is one of those that really started moving the needle on it. Jamie and I, as part of the Planet Green Tree crew, had an opportunity to interview Dr. Grinspoon before his passing, when he introduced the concept of the ensemble effect as opposed to the entourage effect, where the entourage is one single person who has a bunch of followers, which is how people used to view THC, and then the other cannabinoids. However, the ensemble effect looks at THC as an equal member working in concert with all the other cannabinoids as well, which Dr. Grinspoon thought was a much better portrayal of the true history, of the true chemistry that happens inside your body.
Dr. Leary's another one. I mean, that guy, was it the tune in, tune out, or whatever his little slogan was, right?
Timothy Leary, yes.
Yeah, Timothy Leary. He was, those are the I guess the real OGs of all of this, right? I mean,
when the Beatles went to India and they came back after having sat with the I'm not sure who it was, the gurus that they sat with back there, and they brought the idea of cannabis freedom, and they started to get trippy. That changed a lot of people's mind back in that day too. That was in the late 60s, early 70s. And a lot of people who were Beatles fans just naturally fell in with that. So
yeah, we discredit, I think, a lot of what we do as society is we discredit the human experience. We don't want you to feel good. If you have to ingest something that makes you feel good, that's bad. You're inferior. You have a problem. Why would you need to ingest something to improve your life, right? And I think a lot of those folks, the OGs, kind of brought some of that to light. But I guess we're doing that to this day, right?
Well, the alcohol and tobacco industry thrive in the United States and worldwide. And one of the reasons they do is that they paint a portrait of life. While you have a White Claw in your hand, by the way, I don't drink them, they're terrible. If you have a White Claw in your hand, you're at a party. You're doing something fun, because no one would drink a White Claw by themselves. Truth.
Right.
If you're drinking a White Claw, you're a happening dude, right? And that's been the portrayal for a long time. I remember we used to, when I grew up in Flint, we had snowmobiles, and there was the Bud Man, who was a caped crusader who avenged Budweiser's, I guess, the Bud Man, and it was a great logo. We had those stickers all over the sleds because that was the thing people did, right? And we're changing society from being an alcohol dependent fun society to being a society with choices.
The 80s and the 90s are over, folks. No more sitting in the closet drinking a case of wine. We got new alternatives, and there's no need to burn your liver out, Yeah.
Well, that's it too. There's a lot of people whose lives and whose careers were cut tragically short by alcohol abuse, or whose potential was corrupted in some way by the pursuit of that. Look at the history with painters. They used to use lead paint, and sometimes the lead would create madness and
Yeah.
rip their ear off, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's
They think that's what killed Bob Ross. They
Yeah.
said, I was watching a special, every time he'd smack the damn his little paintbrush, it had the chemicals that were on there. They say that's what caused his cancer that eventually killed him. So yeah. I mean, it's nuts to think that you just had no idea. I mean, my old man, he worked in a printing plant for 20 years, right? And knock on wood, he hasn't had any cancer issues. But yeah, who knows what we've been exposed to? I've already, like I said, survived cancer, and I'm sure it came from the burn pits in Iraq. I would guarantee it. I mean, I came home, and then 4 years later, I developed a weird type of cancer that you wouldn't normally have. And I think that, again, the environment, stop pumping this nonsense into everybody, right?
We don't have that much time, but Anton, just to like, if you don't mind, is the cancer that you had, was cannabis involved in your overcoming that? Is that part of your testimonial, your story?
It is not. I did not at that time. I was still working for Uncle Sugar, so I wish I had known. I was lucky. I caught mine early, right? It was weird. I found a lump, and I said, "Oh shit, what is that?" Right? And I went to the doctor, and it was like, "Oh yeah, you got cancer." And I was in surgery a week later. So I didn't get drugged through the chemo. They wanted to do some radiation, and I rolled the dice. I gambled. I said, you know what? I'm going to, if this comes back, can you cure it? And they said, yeah, probably. So I said, but if I do, they said, if you do radiation, and they wanted me to do a round of chemo, they said, if you do a round of chemo, I believe I was 26 at the time. They said, you're probably going to get some other crazy cancer when you're an old man and die, because when they come back the second time, they're usually more aggressive. And that's why giving younger people chemo is such a risk, because it can involve other types of cancers when they become elderly, right? So I just rolled the dice. I said, let's see if it comes back, and knock on wood, it didn't. But I've been 3 years after I had the cancer, that's when I started medical cannabis. And I got to tell you, I take RSO, and just as a maintenance dose, because I'm scared. I don't want to do it. I was lucky. I was in Boston at the time, so I was operated on at Brigham and Women's, and I had, the guy who literally invented the surgery that was being performed on me. He was the dude that did it. So I had literally the best in the business, and I ended up going over to the Dana-Farber Cancer Center in Boston, which is amazing. But boy, I'll tell you, being in the room with all, seeing all these sick people, it made me thankful that I kind of got a second chance, because I think that the chemo and stuff it wasn't for me.
Can you reset us on the Saturday event as we're wrapping up our time here, just to give people that final message?
Yep. November 20th, meet us at which is this Saturday. Meet us at Lighten Up Provisioning Center in Flint, Michigan, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. It is open to anybody 18 years and older. There's a waiver, and there's the Best Buds sign up form when you pick your turkey up, and then they give you the turkey, and you'll be able to go home. Grab a cup of coffee or some hot cocoa on us too. The coffee beaner will be there.
Fantastic.
I appreciate y'all having me. It means a lot. I love the show.
And anything else you want to add? Hero Project? Any contact information?
Anybody that wants to reach out to me, my email address is AHARB as in Bravo. So it's aharb@heroprojectusa.org. And reach out to me at any time. Hero Project, we're doing big things in the future. We're getting partners on board. We're getting the message out. So look for us over the next 6 months to a year. And we appreciate any support anybody can give us, really.
All right, heroprojectusa.org. So I hope that Adam is okay.
I don't see him.
He said he's having to deal with some stuff over there with this condition. So we're hoping that.
I hope he's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Other than that, we had a pretty slim crew today. It doesn't typically happen, but we were able to somehow talk our way through it. Some good stuff. Appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate both of you.
Yeah, we'll be checking in from time to time, and we didn't talk about it, but obviously Anton's been very involved in all these various projects and events and different things to help work against these anti-caregiver bills and big money interest bills that have been cropping up.
Happy to let the democratic process work.
Yeah, so far we're keeping them at bay, but as we discussed earlier in the show, they keep on laying it on, and
we'll get them. They're in the wrong. We will win. They're in the wrong.
I dig it, man.
On our side.
I like it. Dig it. So, with that, good show. Rick, if you don't mind, wrap her up for us.
Well, it was a short crew, but I think the overarching theme is that there's a lot of people and a lot of different moving components, and most of us are pushing towards the same goal, and that's the normalization of cannabis, the protection of people who need it for medicinal purpose, and the helping of other people under the premise of cannabis or otherwise. I hope that you take away from this episode a sense of optimism towards what's going on in Michigan and federally. But I also hope you take forward a sense of obligation to reach out to your fellow man and do a good deed and find someone who you don't normally talk to and make the effort. Because oftentimes that's the difference between someone having a good day and someone having a very, very bad day. So that's it.
Right on. Thanks, Rick. All right. Thanks again, Anton. And
right.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Do it again next week. See you guys.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yep.
Thank
Peace.
you, Anton.
Take care. Thank you.